July 17, 2025, a combined attack of 6 Russian cruise missiles and 30 radar-jamming UAVs entered Ukrainian airspace, attacking 3 strategic UAV manufacturing facilities in Dnipro and Pava. 2 missiles penetrated Ukraine's new air defense line, completely destroying a UAV factory, killing 5 engineers, injuring 20 others, and causing heavy damage. Less than 36 hours later, Ukraine responded in an unexpected way. 110 homemade UAVs, most of them strapped with bombs and anti-tank mines with industrial tape, flew deep into a Russian nuclear base, Belgar 22. With such a crude homemade UAV attack formation, could Ukraine defeat the world's most expensive defense system? And why did Russia choose to attack the UAV manufacturing base instead of somewhere else? Let's find out the truth. At exactly 4:45 a.m. on July 17, 2025, the calm of eastern Ukraine was shattered. Without warning, 30 Russian jamming drones surged into Ukrainian airspace, flooding military frequencies with electronic interference. Behind this smoke screen of static and confusion, 6-caliber cruise missiles were launched from Russian warships stationed in the Black Sea. Their targets: 3 of Ukraine's most critical UAV manufacturing facilities, 2 located in Dnipro, 1 in Pava. What followed was a calculated and devastating strike. The U.S. supplied Patriot PAC-3 system, freshly delivered just 5 days earlier, was still undergoing software calibration and had not yet been fully integrated into Ukraine's broader defense network. Despite its potential, the system was not ready. 4 of the missiles were intercepted, but 2 broke through. At 4:49 a.m., one of those missiles slammed directly into Plant 17A in eastern Dnipro, which was assembling the latest batch of Ukraine's battlefield reconnaissance drones. The warhead detonated near the main assembly hangar, triggering a massive explosion that killed 5 senior UAV engineers instantly and injured at least 20 other personnel. The blast also destroyed an estimated $60 million worth of infrastructure, equipment, and in-progress drones. Satellite imagery captured just hours later showed the entire compound reduced to blackened concrete and twisted steel. Flames licked at drone chassis still mounted on production rigs. Power lines hung melted from their poles. What was once a hub of Ukraine's low-cost aerial innovation now lay in ruins. This was not just an airstrike. It was a targeted blow to Ukraine's most asymmetric advantage, its ability to wage war with cheap, home-built UAVs. For Russia, it was a precision victory. For Ukraine, it was a loss of both lives and momentum. But deep underground in the city of Kharkiv, another kind of operation was already beginning. Before witnessing the moment that changed the history of modern warfare, like, subscribe, and tell me how to punish Russia. By 10:30 a.m., just 6 hours after Russia's brutal cruise missile attack, Ukraine was already preparing a response, not from a gleaming high-tech war room, but from a cold, dimly lit underground bunker outside Kharkiv. The walls were concrete, the tables old, and the power flickered. But around them sat some of Ukraine's most battle-hardened engineers and UAV tacticians. Their task to design a counterstrike that would cost Russia dearly. With millions in equipment destroyed and 5 top engineers killed, Ukraine didn't have the luxury of advanced weapons. But what it did have was ingenuity, desperation. Inside Ukraine's secret bunker, Operation Black Swarm begins, and 110 homemade drones, many of which were built using consumer-grade components, taped together batteries, and explosives strapped on with duct tape. The retaliation plan was renamed Black Swarm. It was broken into 3 coordinated layers. 10 signal jamming. UAVs would fly ahead to disrupt Russian radar in the Belgar region for at least 3 to 5 minutes, enough to blind early warning systems. 30 improvised drones loaded with anti-tank mines would follow. These mines were designed to detonate violently mid-air. If the drones were intercepted, shredding radar arrays and blinding defense crews. The final wave, 70 suicide drones, each carrying 2 to 5 kilos of high-explosive warheads, targeted Russia's strategic Belgar 22 nuclear facility located 58 mi from the border. A senior Ukrainian colonel reportedly said, "We don't need stealth bombers. We need chaos, cheap, dirty, and fast." The mission wasn't just revenge. It was designed to wax Russia's confidence, disrupt a key military asset, and prove that even a wounded Ukraine could strike at the heart of a nuclear superpower. This moment will reveal a truth few are ready to face: that the future of war doesn't fly on a B-2 or ride on a ballistic missile. Sometimes it's duct taped together for just only $200. Come witness history with me. At exactly 1:10 a.m. on July 18, 2025, the sky over northern Ukraine was pitch black. No stars, no moon, only silence. That silence was shattered when a wave of 110 improvised Ukrainian UAVs lifted off from concealed launch pads near Sumy, just 45 miles from the Russian border. There were no flashing lights, no radio chatter. The drones moved low and fast, hugging the terrain, operating under preloaded GPS coordinates with no need for real-time control, a tactic designed to bypass Russia's electronic jamming and make radar lock nearly impossible. What made them extraordinary was not advanced technology, but the complete opposite. These were homemade war machines, each costing less than $2,200 to assemble. The first layer, 10 electronic warfare drones, activated their crude but effective broad-spectrum jamming modules upon entering Russian airspace. These modules, built from modified civilian electronics and battery packs, emitted randomized interference pulses across Russian radar frequencies. Within minutes, the radar stations protecting Belgrade 22, Russia's classified nuclear weapons base, were blinded. Operators in underground command centers reported total signal loss for over 4 minutes, a catastrophic vulnerability window. At 1:18 a.m., the second wave entered. 30 drones carrying Soviet-era TM-62 anti-tank mines, each weighing 15 pounds. The mines were crudely duct-taped to the fuselage, rigged to explode when the drones were hit or jammed. Russian short-range air defenses like the Tor M2 and Panzer S-1 attempted interception. But instead of stopping the assault, the interceptions triggered massive mid-air explosions. One Tor battery's radar unit was torn apart by shrapnel. A Panzer system exploded from within after the mine-laden drone it destroyed detonated at just 30 meters. At 1:24 a.m., the final and deadliest wave descended. 70 suicide drones, each carrying high explosive warheads between 2 and 5 kilos. Their targets had been 110 duct-taped drones versus Russia's nuclear fortress, the midnight launch carefully chosen. Fuel storage tanks, missile loading bays, a hardened command and control bunker, and most critically, a nuclear materials handling facility deep inside the Belgrade 22 compound. The drones swarmed from 3 angles, coordinated by pre-programmed, staggered flight paths. Russian defenses were overwhelmed, radar still jammed, interceptors either misfiring or down. Surveillance footage would later show at least 38 drones hitting targets simultaneously in under 90 seconds. At 1:26 a.m., one drone penetrated the outer shell of a liquid nuclear fuel processing structure. The resulting explosion was not nuclear, but the secondary detonation of fuel chemicals created a blast radius of over 900 meters, sending a shock wave equivalent to a 500 lb conventional bomb. Entire bunkers collapsed. Fireballs engulfed nearby vehicles and tents. Initial Russian estimates, classified but leaked 36 hours later, revealed over 240 military personnel killed, including at least 12 nuclear technicians, 322 M3 strategic bombers destroyed in hangars, 6 armored vehicles, and 2 mobile radar systems vaporized. In less than 20 minutes, Ukraine's $100,000 swarm of homemade drones had caused an estimated $1.22 billion in damage, not including the strategic and psychological cost of hitting a nuclear weapons base inside Russian soil. By dawn, Belgar 22 was in flames. But what was more terrifying to Moscow than the fire was the fact that it had never seen them coming. Is Ukraine doing the right thing? If so, leave the number 9 in the comments. Small weapon, but huge consequences. Look at the price Russia has to pay for looking down on others. By sunrise, on July 18, 2025, Belgar 22 was no longer just a battlefield. It had become a symbol of collapse. What shocked analysts in Washington, Brussels, and Tel Aviv was not only the destruction, but how completely it severed Russia's local nuclear command structure. Western intelligence confirmed something unprecedented. For over 7 hours after the strike, there were no outgoing signals from Belgar 22, not a single encrypted transmission, not even emergency redundancy traffic. In the world of nuclear deterrence, this was equivalent to going blind and mute at the same time. In response, the Russian Ministry of Defense quietly initiated Protocol Vostok 6, a rarely acknowledged contingency plan to reassign strategic oversight to a backup control node near Kursk. This reallocation, typically designed for wartime scenarios, delayed full regional command recovery by more than 12 hours, causing a near-total blackout in Western Russia's theater of operations. But inside the Kremlin, the shock turned into paranoia. According to intercepted communications from the Federal Protective Service (FSO), at least 17 officers at Belgrade 22 were being investigated for negligence, with 3 senior commanders placed under house arrest. Social media in Russia erupted until it was swiftly silenced. Pro-military bloggers hinted that the strike had hit far deeper than anyone admitted, possibly affecting classified R&D labs or prototype warhead transport units. The Kremlin denied all, but 2 independent satellite intelligence firms published time-lapse heat imagery showing a cluster of deep-buried bunkers going cold, suggesting loss of vital strategic systems, not just fuel and aircraft. The psychological toll was immense. Overnight, at least 9 Russian military garrisons near the Belgorod 22 explodes. Chaos, casualties, and Russia goes silent. Ukrainian border were placed on alert. Officers reportedly refused to sleep inside known ammunition storage sites, fearing follow-up attacks. Internationally, the implications were chilling. NATO increased DEFCON readiness across 4 Eastern European bases. Israel placed Iron Dome and David Sling batteries near its nuclear sites on 24-hour alert. Global oil prices jumped 8.7%, with traders citing regional nuclear instability as the driver. But perhaps the most profound impact came from within Russia's own nuclear doctrine. For decades, its strength lay in intimidation through invulnerability. But now, with a homemade Ukrainian drone carrying duct-taped explosives and $40 batteries, that illusion had shattered, and the world had watched it happen in real time through the smoke. By July 20, 2025, military MEs around the world weren't studying stealth bombers or missile shields. They were studying duct tape, circuit boards from hobby shops, and the handwritten flight algorithms of Ukrainian students who had helped build a swarm that rewrote modern warfare. What began as a desperate response to a missile strike had triggered a global paradigm shift. In the aftermath of the attack on Belgrade 22, more than a dozen NATO and Asian defense ministries launched urgent studies into low-cost drone swarm doctrine. Ukraine had just proved that air superiority no longer belongs solely to superpowers, and that even a war-torn nation can bend the battlefield with enough innovation. What shocked generals wasn't just the damage, but how little it cost. $1,200 drones destroying $90 million bombers, off-the-shelf batteries defeating cutting-edge radar, chaos coordinated not by satellites, but by backroom code. In Washington, a Pentagon advisory panel issued an internal memo calling Ukraine's tactics a harbinger of post-industrial warfare. It warned that traditional thinking built on size, speed, and steel could collapse in the face of open-source weapons and unpredictable logic. But beyond tactics, there was something deeper, something cultural. This wasn't just a military event. It was a lesson in asymmetric imagination, one with profound implications for American education, innovation, and defense policy. In classrooms across the US, educators began using the attack as a case study, not in destruction, but in ingenuity. It became a way to teach young minds that strategy isn't just about power, but purpose. That the next great shift in global balance might come not from a general in uniform, but a teenager with a soldering iron, a laptop, and an idea no one thought possible. Ukraine's drones didn't just hit targets. They cracked open the 21st century battlefield and redefined who gets to shape it. The world now watches the skies differently, and history may remember this not simply as a strike, but as the first shot of a new era, where invention, not invasion, becomes the ultimate weapon. In less than 48 hours, the world witnessed a war unfold. That didn't follow the rules of the end of an era. How Ukraine redefined modern warfare, conventional power. Russia opened the exchange with 6 precision missiles and 30 radar-jamming drones, targeting Ukraine's technological heart. But it was Ukraine's response, born not from wealth or size, but from resourcefulness and necessity, that reshaped the modern battlefield. With a swarm of 110 improvised UAVs built from duct tape, spare parts, and battlefield scrap, Ukraine didn't just strike back, it shattered assumptions. The destruction of Belgar 22, a cornerstone of Russia's nuclear infrastructure, wasn't merely a tactical success. It was a strategic message, delivered by a nation many had underestimated. You may silence our engineers, but not our resolve. But beyond the fire and smoke lies a deeper truth. Ukraine's drones didn't just destroy a base. They forced the world to admit that military supremacy is no longer measured in missiles and tanks, but in ideas, adaptability, and will. This isn't the end of the war, but it may be the end of an era where only superpowers shaped outcomes, an era where cost defined capability, an era where nations like Ukraine were expected only to survive, not to win. What comes next is unclear, but one thing is certain: war has entered a new chapter, one written not by steel, but by circuit boards. Not by shock and awe, but by swarm and surprise. And as the smoke fades from Belgar 22, we are left with one urgent question. In the wars to come, will we invest more in domination or in imagination? If you believe stories like this deserve to be told clearly, truthfully, and without noise, please consider subscribing and sharing. Your support helps keep history in focus.